All right, here we are. Welcome everyone to another edition of the Living Room Welcomes. A little bit of a different format compared to usually where we do music on this channel. But today we have another amazing guest with us, and I'm excited to get you acquainted with him. He has about 20 years of experience in the medical field and is currently working in polar expeditions mostly. And he's here today to talk about his work and about his current project, where we will also talk a little bit about how you can help make it happen. We are still on an ad break on Twitch at the moment. I didn't count that in, but I just hope everyone is arriving safely here with us. And let's get right into it. Let's see who we have here. I welcome in. Thanks for being here today with me.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a completely new surrounding and a completely new environment for me.
Yeah, I can
but
imagine.
it's a very interesting and a very funny new project to be in, and to do something completely new is always fun, and it's always good to do something different.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. Thanks for diving into this new experience. I mean, that's not a given, right? And I'm definitely stoked to have you here and to hear a bit about your projects. We already talked a bit in the last few days, and I'm excited to share that with people in chat as well and people who are watching, and maybe learn a bit more even, and something new. So let's start a little bit with why you're here. Like, how did you end up in the living room? Because that's probably a question a lot of people in chat are always wondering. Like, I'm a music streamer. How the hell did you get someone on here who's currently mostly running around in cold climates?
And not even living in Germany anymore. So I moved to Norway 10 years ago. So my home, or my new home, is Norway actually.
Yeah.
But I've been to 2 fairs in Germany. Also project related. As you said, we want to talk about this a little bit more.
Right.
Little trigger warning, if I start talking about that,
I'll
we're gonna
keep-
talk a little bit more.
Yeah.
So yes, I was on 2 fairs to talk about. We can actually say what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We developed a telemedicine system which is satellite network based, and we are the world's first. And it's a lot of work. It's a challenging project, but it's also a really, really funny project. And so that's what brought me to the 2 fairs. And then I made a few really nice contacts and learned about new people, new opportunities. And I stayed after the fair to talk to these people. Decided not to go back to Norway straight away, but stay in Germany to have these conversations. I'm old school. I like to sit on a table and have a chat. And I think for a lot of things, it's a lot easier to talk in person than to do things by email.
Definitely, especially when it comes to talking to these partners in bigger projects like this. I think it's just easier. There's so much out there probably that if you don't talk to someone and you see what's actually being worked on and what's happening, I think sometimes it's difficult for these people to put like a tag on it. Okay, this is something we want to support, this is something we might not want.
And I also feel like if you have to pass all the desks by sending an email, you have this large institute or large company, and you start with info at.
Yeah.
It takes forever, but when you approach people direct and say, hey, this is where I'm coming from, this is what I'm doing, and you hopefully can share your passion about a project, sometimes it helps to get an access.
And that's in the end what you're here to do as well, right? To share your passion about the
a little
project
bit.
and maybe
Spread the
excite-
polar virus.
Yeah, excite a few more people about it. Spread the polar virus, as you say. So, first of all, you said your project is telemedicine. Would you want to elaborate a little bit on that? What you're exactly talking about when talking about telemedicine? Because I'm sure some of our viewers have never been in contact with that specific.
Then we have to make a little bit of a larger loop. So I've worked as a paramedic, and I've been in disaster response units as well. And I worked in remote locations, in disaster zones and war zones. So I have a little bit of a small experience in working in these environments and
Small experience, he says, being in multiple disaster areas.
no, but the point is, I might have a little bit of an idea what helps when you are in these surroundings. And working as a polar medic, why am I working as a polar medic? Should we explain that as well? So, as we said, I've been in disaster and war zones, and I wanted to quit this kind of work. I was on a point where I thought I've seen really enough crazy stuff.
Yeah, for how long in total did you work in these?
Well, just in war zones, pretty much in one run, almost 4.5 years, switching between different countries. The point was I noticed that I needed a change for myself, and that's what brought me to Norway. And I talked to a friend and said, hey, maybe I should work in Norway. And she said, why don't you work as a medic in Norway? And I said, yeah, brilliant idea, because I'm speaking so fluent Norwegian. How do you picture this to happen? And then she said, but you can just send out an application, and if people want you, they're gonna give you the time to improve your language skills.
Right.
And it was more like, okay, let's just give it a try. And it was more like a fun project, like it's not gonna happen. And that really didn't work because my third application was a successful application. But then it was a Norwegian NGO and they were looking for medics in Gaza. So welcome back to start. So we went to Gaza and yeah, I don't know. Somehow you always end up in the same loop, I guess. And after this project, I said I don't care what it is, and even if I'm selling pizza, but I'm not moving forward in this field.
Yeah, like I'm not going back to that and again.
So I started working in tourism in a completely different field, and I started
still as a medic, right?
No, as a tourist guide. I was standing in a bus talking about Roald Amundsen and telling the tourists what we do in Polar Night, and I arrived in the city 3 days before. So I was really talking about a script I learned, and I enjoyed this. I always enjoyed working with people and working with humans. And from there, it developed to the photographers are the more interesting people. And then the photographers wanted to photograph polar bears. And there were a few companies who were doing photo expeditions in Norway, but nobody was based in Norway. So I had my own company doing photo expeditions. Okay. And from there, we moved to Svalbard because we moved our luggage and our photo equipment by plane all the time. And you know how airlines treat photo equipment. Yeah. So at a certain point, I decided, okay, we're going to stay on Svalbard. And then the governor said, do you have all the polar trainings? And I said, what polar trainings exactly? So I had to do all the polar bear safety, kayak training, guide training, and all this kind of stuff. And as I said, I never planned to become a polar guide. I just wanted my tourists to photograph stuff in the Arctic. And then from there, I lived up there for 2.5 years. And then I got to know the more professional polar guides, polar expedition stuff, and got to know the ship people. And the ship people said, but if you're a polar guide and you're a medic, you could work with us and could be the medic. Nice. And so that's where the circle closed, and where it was more, okay, you are a medic again, but in a completely different surrounding. And then I did a lot of expedition medicine training, especially in the UK with Remote Area Risk International. Greetings to my friends on the other side, by the way. A lot of very, very good training and really, really good people. I got to know a lot of very funny people, and we will see later they are really funny, because when I told them we need to go to Antarctica and build our own telemedicine system, they all said yes and were part of the project, and I still are. So yeah.
So that's a good point. So to circle back to your project, right? So you elaborated a bit on how you ended up in the Arctic, right? And now how you learned how you apply your experience as a medic in that field as well. Now about that specific project, you said it's in telemedicine. I have a few people working on it. So it's not only you being involved in this project.
No, we have... So from the Remote Area Risk International bubble or network, from the training center, I met people who worked in the polar regions. And Dr. Catherine Genley, for example, worked 2.5 years for the British Antarctic Survey. She is part of it. And Dr. Hannah Evans is doing telemedicine with the oil rigs in Scotland and is also polar connected, you can say. And when I asked them to help me with their knowledge and their experience, they said yes, they would. And then there is Tim from West End Wi-Fi, who is Mr. Q, who is the technical expert. He knows everything about Starlink and satellite-based networks. So he was is very, very helpful when it comes to these things, because I'm a paramedic. You know, I'm not a telemedicine expert by any means. Why did we start this whole thing? Because I was on a ship in Antarctica working as a medic, and they gave me a satellite phone and said, that's your communication line. And
as you said, that's important, right? In something that's different for working as a medic in these kind of, compared to like what we are used to, that it's like vital for you to stay in contact like doctors on the outside.
So when we compare with Germany as an example, we have something which is called Hilfsfrist in German, rescue response time, you could probably translate it to, which is 8 minutes. So from the moment you pick up the phone and call an ambulance, it shouldn't take more than 8 minutes before there is an ambulance in front of your door.
Right.
And if it's not a very critical case or somebody is stuck somewhere, then I would say you are easily in 1 hour in the hospital. So when we are in Antarctica and all the gods are with you and the weather is nice and you have a lot of really important friends, they bring you back from Antarctica in 3 days. And that's the best possible scenario you can picture. Most likely it will take a lot longer.
And a lot can happen in those 3 days if someone is not treated correctly, right?
Right. We have something which we call the golden hour. And now people say it's even less than that. But if you say we talk about a heart attack, for example, remember normally an hour later you are in the critical care unit. So now back to Antarctica, 3 days.
Yeah.
So everything which happens on the critical care department has to happen in Antarctica.
In the field, yeah.
In the field. And you might be a good medic, but you can't be an expert in everything.
Yeah, I mean, same with your project, same with everything, right? It's always like a group project. It's not only you working on this, it's not only you being there as a medic and people perfectly know, because you can't be a specialist. Everything.
Exactly, and my point is, if we go to more remote locations and we can bring less equipment, then we need to increase the amount of knowledge.
Yeah.
And to give a really practical example, if I'm looking at an ECG, I get an idea and I have an understanding, but a cardiologist who does this since 20 years, of course, sees a lot more, has a lot more experience, has a lot more practical experience what to do in these certain cases. So if I can talk to a cardiologist and live stream the ECG, which is an important point, if you talk, for example, about an ultrasound, we all know these mama-baby scan, that's where people know ultrasounds, and for 90% of the people it looks like a weather map, right?
Yeah.
And so if we can live stream that, it's a big advantage.
Yeah, definitely.
Because then we can have a neutral opinion from somebody else who is an expert in this field, and we can get medical overwatch or medical advice from an expert in a warm room, in a non-pressurous situation, and we can increase our treatment a lot. And that's the motivation, that's why we're doing it.
Yeah. So to span back to the telemedicine thing, right? So what I'm getting from that is that telemedicine is mostly about being in a remote area where you need to not have someone there with you, giving you infos or giving you another opinion or some specific information about something you weren't trained with, and staying in contact with harsh environments.
Correct. It's a little bit like somebody is looking over your shoulder. like when you are a paramedic student or you're a doctor and you are starting your career, it's something you experience a lot, that you learn things by having somebody looking over your shoulder. And you kind of go back to that, and people say, hey, you can do this and that in this and that matter. And if we expand the bubble a little bit, if you talk about a disaster response unit, going from Germany, for example, to Turkey to the earthquake, you might not have any kind of infrastructure. So you have no networks at all, you have no electricity at all, you definitely have no hospitals. And now having this medical overwatch, to have somebody again sitting in a quiet, warm, good light up environment, being able to give you an overwatch and give you some support is a powerful tool.
Yeah, I can imagine. You said like outside of the bubble, right? Speaking about the Arctic bubble, but that it also applies to, for example, disaster areas or war zones. How much would you say, from your experience, is that something that makes a huge impact? Because, for example, in the polar regions, right? For example, how often, from your experience, do you have to get into contact with, where it would have helped you already at that? Like, is that something that makes a small difference, is basically what I'm saying? Or is that something that is needed so much that we really need this? It might be a stupid question. But
No, it's not. Absolutely not. It's a very, very important point. It's a bit like the umbrella. How often does it really rain, and how often do you carry an umbrella? But when it rains, it makes a huge difference. So, is it something very complicated to establish? Is it something which is very costly? Is it a huge effort to make it happen? No, it's not.
so why didn't it happen?
Because we don't have the technology. We have not. We are the first people who used a satellite-based network for telemedicine.
So, talking about your project here and just short info to the people watching. If you're in chat right now, feel free to have a chat with people. Right now, I'm having a little bit of look out on chat, but we will be answering questions later. So for now, we'll be talking a bit about Kai's project and also show you a few pictures later of his expeditions. You mentioned also being or having people on board who were going to the Arctic for photos mostly, right? You did so yourself, which we'll see a little bit later. Yeah, in addition to that, after that, we're gonna answer some of your questions. So if you have some questions, keep them best for yourself for now. We'll let you know later, and we'll go to you guys. But yeah, for now, back to your project. You said that it wasn't done yet, right? Because nobody had the technology. So what did change that you started working? What made it possible?
For me, the magic moment was the satellite phone. And everybody was like, see, you have so fancy technology. And when you look at an ultrasound picture, you have like this black, white, and it's hard for a professional to identify everything. Okay, now I know all my doctors are gonna say, no, it's not, but for a paramedic, it's not an easy task. You have to be very concentrated to see things. And it's definitely not possible to explain it on a telephone. But a satellite phone is an audio connection. The amount of data you can send with a satellite phone is very, very limited. And it was 2020 when I had this experience, and I looked at people and I said, this is medieval style. Why are we doing this? Why are we not having something that is much more powerful that we can live stream? And I went around and talked to large medical companies and said, hey, do you know there's a huge gap? We really need a tool to fill this gap. And then I love the sentence. People said, yes, very important. We really should do something about it. And I hate nothing more than this sentence. And I'm stubborn. I'm from the northern part of Germany. I thought, no, we gonna do it. Like, I don't care. It must be possible. It can't be so hard. And I went through LinkedIn up and down to find people, and I talked to the network in the UK, which was amazing because I really, really found great contacts there. And we started with very, very simple ideas. And we used different tools and streamed things together on one screen and then shared it. And we were sitting in the UK on a farm field trying out Starlink as a tool. Because why Starlink? We were looking for a network that is available worldwide. We were looking for a network that you can transport as a private person, because of course the military has more powerful networks, but good luck traveling with that, right? So we needed something that is accessible for everybody, which has low costs, because cost of course is always a point, but we needed to be able to send large amounts of data. And we wanted almost worldwide coverage, and we needed it accessible. So we bought a Starlink, and we removed all the plastic with the Laserman, sorry, and put it in a Pili case and put a charge controller on it, because we started with, we have no infrastructure. So we need to bring our own power as well. So yeah, you might have a generator, but then you need fuel. So we worked with solar. We used power film solar panels, which are very, very effective. We had a wind generator from Shine, very innovative new company, which makes a small, portable, foldable wind turbine. And so then you're really remote and you can really work with it. And we have a version right now that's available, which is in a Pili case. It's one large box, but it has a relatively large battery, so you can operate it for a long period of time. But when we talk about disaster response unit, we need to be able to throw this in a plane. Can you bring large batteries? No, you can't. So that's where we need to improve, and that's where we are now. We have proved the concept. We have been to Antarctica. We have sent medical data from Antarctica, and yes, it works.
Nice.
Which is indeed.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And now we need to make it smaller. So we want to have it in small packs that people can easily bring it, even if they already carry equipment. We need to have the energy optimized a little bit more and make it more power efficient. And that's the current phase we are on.
So to get a bit more specific, so people can maybe put an image to it, right? We've been talking a lot about what you're working on, what it could achieve, why you do it, and what you do it for. But like, take us through, like, how does it look? Like, what is it in the end that you're actually working on?
At the moment, it's a large orange Pili case. So we have a suitcase that's a little bit too big to be a carry-on.
How large are we talking? Can you like more or less show that on screen?
Maybe something like that.
Okay, so definitely mobile.
Yes, mobile, definitely. And we brought it with a plane to Antarctica. So yes, you can travel with it. But when we picture a rescue response unit, for example, we take the Red Cross. Everybody knows the Red Cross. So you have a unit from the Red Cross which gets the information you have to deploy to, let's say with Turkey, to the earthquake. From that moment, you have 24 hours and you want to be in country operational. That's what you want to achieve. So going to the airport and saying, hey, I have this really nice lithium battery, which is dangerous goods, and I need specific air freight, dangerous good, hazmat, paperwork. Nobody has time for that.
Yeah.
And it's also something which makes your planning process a lot more complicated. So we can't do that. We need something. When you fly, you have a power bank. So we need to orientate ourselves more in this direction. It needs to be something I can just carry with me without any kind of trouble.
Yeah.
And we can do this. We are able to have the technology for achieving this. But you need to buy a lot of pieces and a lot of bits. And it's a lot of testing. And it's a lot of developing. And then which material does it need to be? And can you 3D print it? And if you 3D print it, does it withstand cold temperatures? And again, I'm a paramedic.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't have all these technologies. I don't have the knowledge about the different types of batteries. This is why I need partners, cooperation partners. And I'm very, very happy and very, very lucky that I'm so far finding these people. But then another really, really large step is how do you finance all?
Of course. And that's a good point, because if people in chat have already text chat the pinned message, today everything you are able to give towards the stream, usually in donations, etc., will go towards Kai's current project. We have a few incentives. We'll be talking about that in a little bit as well. But everyone today who's willing to give a little bit about $10 will get a collection of images, high-resolution images you can use for printing posters, for example, from Kai's expeditions to the Antarctica. And if you are able to give a little bit more than $25, Kai has also written an ebook. At the moment, I think it's mostly digital, right?
Yes, it's definitely an ebook.
Yes, about polar expeditions and his work in the polar region as well. So if you're interested in that, or if you just want to support someone who's at a critical step, I would say, in your work, then please consider it. And yeah, and we'll be talking a bit about your pictures as well. You brought a few with you, right?
Yes, we have a folder, and the picture people see in the folder are the pictures they can get as well.
Right.
So we're gonna make these pictures available. And if I'm allowed, I would love to say a few words about this ebook. Why did I create an ebook? When you talk about the polar regions and you tell people you work there, a lot of people say, oh, I would love to do that. And my answer is always, yeah, then please go. Because it's not rocket science. It's really not. And people are a little bit too, not scared, but too careful when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And the idea is not to give you a expedition plan and this is how you do it. The idea is to give you access points to plan your own adventure. And if you want to go with an interrail ticket to Norway and you want to go above the polar circle to see the northern lights, you will find information in this book. If you say, I want to go dog sledding on Svalbard and I want to do 19 days crossing Svalbard on a dog sled, you will find information in the ebook. But again, it's not an instant expedition plan.
Yeah, of course. So it's more like giving people a little bit more information, because I think you said something about people being very careful when it comes to traveling there, right?
Yeah.
Even though by now you said you worked as a tourist guide, right? So these regions are also like conquered by tourism already.
Absolutely.
And still, even though of course it might be a bit more expensive than, for example, going to Bavaria or something for a few days, but like it is accessible by now. And still people wouldn't consider it probably, because I feel like that's a region where we still don't know a lot about, right? At least not specifically. We know it's cold. We know, in the south we have land, in the north we have ice. But when it comes to like actually traveling there, what it needs to be done, how maybe relatively easy some parts are, and how difficult some other parts still are, and where we need like improvement, for example, in telemedicine, right? I think information is just a powerful tool, right?
And it saves you the struggle of finding all these single points.
Yeah.
If you want to go to the Arctic, it's not harder to fly to Longyearbyen than to fly to Madrid in Spain. And there's one bus in front of the airport, which brings you to all the hotels in Longyearbyen.
Yeah.
And if you get into the right plane, it's nothing you can do wrong until you arrive in the hotel, pretty much. And all this is in the book, like it's not. There are things you need to consider, and please don't run around on Svalbard without a polar bear protection. And again, it's in the book, yeah, but it's something I experience as a guide, because people start in India and they come out of the plane and they are in the Arctic. But the mind is not in the Arctic.
Yeah.
They are on vacation, but now they are in polar bear territory.
Yeah.
And it sounds so unusual, but it's true.
Yeah.
And it's a real danger. So that's important. Safety and rescue and bringing the right equipment and bringing the right clothes. Please don't come with a Walmart winter jacket. But these are things we see, and these are things which happen.
I wanted to ask.
We have like ships with too many people coming to the Arctic for a really, really short time. I'm trying to be very polite here. And they walk off the ship and they go on a glacier. They've never been on a glacier. They don't even know what a crevasse is.
Yeah.
And this is where things go wrong, horribly wrong. And this is where polar bears are getting in danger, and the tourists. But this is where it's important to have a basic understanding on where you are going and what you're doing. And giving this information, giving information about how can you plan your own adventure and how can you plan your own Arctic expedition. What kind of equipment would you need? Can you buy it? Can you rent it? Where can you get it? If I'm going on an organized trip, do I need to buy it at all? And these kind of information you will find in the ebook. It's, I believe, 108 pages, did we say? I think it's 100 something pages. And it's compressed information. And of course, if people say, hey, I am almost done with my planning process, but I have a few more questions. I'm gonna say that again. Yes, you can send me an email and ask, of course.
Nice.
And if you wanna get a few sample pages from the ebook, polarmedic.net as a menu point, which has book, gives you a few information about how it looks and what it is.
So if you folks in chat or watching want to get some additional info on that, as well as the links that we are mentioning sometimes here relating to Kai's work, you can write !Kai in chat on Twitch and get a link tree we set up for everything you can find to his work, especially, for example, your website, right, where you can also get some sample pages on the ebook if you're interested. So should we talk a bit about, since we mentioned now the incentives, right, and that donations go towards your project at the moment, would you like to tell us a bit about specifics about where you are at with your project right now and why we're sitting here basically, even though this is such a needed thing? We talked about how important it is for people working in these fields, not only the polar region, to have a solution for this problem currently. And you said it has still not been done, right? So where are you at right now? And basically, what are the donations going towards to right now? Like, where is this funding needed?
As I said, we have proved the concept. We know we can use a satellite-based network to do telemedicine. It's too large at the moment. It's not practical to work with it like that. We need to change bits and pieces when it comes to energy. We have tested things. We know we can do it. But now you basically buy a new telemedicine system every time you change something. And we have a very, very good cooperation with a large company making medical monitoring. So the medical monitoring side is safe. We know what we want to do in this perspective. But having a module for energy, having a module for creating energy, having a module for the network is what we are doing right now. And again, we found amazing cooperations with people who know a lot about materials. But we are doing this with our own credit card. And that includes the trip to Antarctica, that includes all the planning and all the processing and all the testing we have done so far. We've spent a lot of nights in tents in cold environments in Norway to test solar panels, wind generators, batteries. We've been in the UK and broken a lot of things while testing them. And all of this happens with our own money. And you can imagine if you're not funded and not supported like a big organization, it becomes a very pricey adventure, to be very polite. So if we can have a little bit help making another step, it would be amazing, and it would be really, really appreciated.
Since I think we didn't mention that in my message, like what's your goal right now? Like with what kind of funding is needed at the moment to advance your project?
So at the moment we are trying a new material. So we are making a new case, you can say, and we need all the bits and pieces for this case, like switches, cables, connectors, and just getting these pieces, we are talking about 200, 250 euros for just small bits and pieces. Right. And again, this is like one prototype in one case with one material. But if we can get help with that, that would be amazing. That would be beautiful.
So let's say you would reach that goal in the near future. What's your next steps after that? Can you talk about that already? Like if you build the case, right? You got the materials and you have your next prototype basically.
Yeah.
What's the step after that?
I think the next thing would be heating. So if you talk about polar environments or if you talk about remote environments, it's cold. It doesn't matter if you're
right. I mean, we can agree on that. It doesn't matter how much you know about.
So what I mean by that is, yes, in the polar regions it's cold for sure. But if you go for a disaster zone, for example, you're not in a heated hotel. So we're talking about a cold environment, and we all know what happens to batteries when you bring them to a cold environment. But we of course need to have an operational system. So we need to keep our batteries warm, and these are small bits and pieces. But they are very important, because if your batteries are too cold, you can't recharge them, which makes the whole unit useless.
Yeah.
So we have a heating system for our batteries. And then again, new prototype, new setup, new materials, new isolation. Do we know what we want to do? Yes. Do we have a good idea if this material will work? Yes. Do we know all the physics, and do we know all the technical processes, and have we tested this? Yes. Have we done it? No. So this is what I mean. You know, you can plan and write as many physics theories as you want, but bringing it out to the snow, bringing it out to the ice, dropping it on the floor, and I don't know, let it fall down and let it sit in the rain for 5 weeks. Does it still work? This is what we need to do. And we cannot hope for the best. We need to make sure it works. The field where we want to deploy it is too critical to say, I think it's okay. You know, that's not possible. And if you just consider Antarctica, if you go to an Antarctic expedition and then you are in Antarctica and you find out that your stuff is not working, not that I would know, it's a hard hit.
Yeah.
And so we need to really, really, really make sure that when we say this works and this is ready, it has to be tested very hard.
Yeah.
And really be bulletproof.
Yeah, because in the end, there's lives on the line, right?
Exactly.
It's not that if it doesn't work, oh, we'll try again.
Yeah.
The damage would be already done. So especially in this field, I get that testing is critical right now. Since we talked about your expedition so far, and sometimes it's easy to put a pin on it, what do you say we have a look at your pictures that you took?
Oh,
and you tell us a little bit about your experiences, especially in the Arctic region for now.
Yeah.
And give people an idea what's your basically day-to-day life when you're up there and you're working there. As a, would you say telemedic? As medic.
Yeah, I think the pictures we're gonna see are more landscape pictures. Different environments, but I think it gives people a good understanding about the environment we're talking about. And hopefully it's just nice to look at polar regions.
Right. I mean, it's not all serious business, right? It's
no.
Also a little bit like, I hope at least, even for you, sitting down at like, is it still special for you going there?
Yes.
So and it doesn't matter how often you've been up there, it's still like you're still flabbergasted by it.
It's never getting old to see a polar bear. It's never getting old to see an orca, and it's always my aesthetic to see the ice in Antarctica.
I can imagine. Let's have a look at it together, right?
Maybe
Alright,
maybe
let's see
people
if that
enjoyed
works.
a moment of silence. We're not talking all the time. So I can talk a little bit about the picture we're seeing. This is the northern part of Norway. This is Pasvik Elva. It's a beautiful national park, administrated by Norway, Finland, and Russia. Usually, not at the moment, as you can guess. But it's a beautiful area up there. Really cold, even a little bit colder than Svalbard sometimes. I've been there when it was really, really cold. But if you like nature and you like winter landscapes, it's a beautiful place to go.
So, thanks to my mods, by the way, we've talked about my mods earlier, and here they are saving the day. Thank you so much for letting us know that we were muted. Since that has happened since we watched the pictures, right? Can you quickly do something what we said about that?
So,
so sorry
the
for
middle
technical
part of
issues.
Norway, we are on the west coast. We are looking at Lofoten Islands, and the place we are looking at is called Rheine, the fishing village, you can say. Beautiful place. If you come to Norway and you come to Lofoten, make a stop in Rheine. Yeah, that's the photograph we're looking at.
Have you been there by accident, or is this where you were stationed at the
I
time?
worked at Lofoten Islands for a while, and of course I also like to take photos, and I also enjoyed being on Lofoten.
I mean, if you're surrounded by these kind of landscapes,
You-
it would be a crime not to take a few pictures, right?
Exactly.
And we are also happy that you didn't just take a few pictures with your phone, but you took these kind of pictures, right? So the pictures you're seeing right now are also the pictures that we are offering. We have a Google Drive, basically, prepared for you guys. And every donation today that goes over $10 will receive access to this folder. And you can either let us know or download the pictures there. They are high resolution and perfect for printing, for example. If you want to hang something in your home that reminds you that you really want to do that trip sometime. I guess that's a good point, starting point, right? Right, let's have another look here. This looks
Vesteralen.
like even north, more north.
Vesteralen? No, it's yeah, well, it's a little bit north of Lofoten Islands. You can say it's between Lofoten and Tromsø. Northern Lights would be my first association. Good place to go for Northern Lights. It's not so crowded with people. And if you come to Vesteralen in the summer, you can go to an island called Andøya. And in the northern part of Andøya, you have a city which is called Andenes. Amazing place to see whales.
Okay.
Say hello to my friends from the Netherlands who is running a company called Sea Safari Andenes.
Okay. So they're basically operating there.
They have these large Greenpeace rubber boats, you can say, like these large ribs, and they go out for whale safaris with these boats. Why is this a good thing? if you're on a large ship and you photograph a whale, you photograph down, right? So what's your
Right.
background? It's water.
Yeah.
But if you sit with your own butt on the water surface and you photograph a whale, you have a really nice horizon.
I never thought about that.
Plus, you get a closer connection to the whales. And I know what everybody thinks. No, he's doing a really, really good job and takes really, really good care of the animals. So
That would be a good question as well.
It's-
Like, are they? I imagine that depending on the kind of boats they use, it's also less of a distraction to a whale to get a little bit closer for a photo compared to a big ship, right?
the ship is one point, but the guide is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding where can I place my boat, where can I not place my boat, what can I do, what can I not do. I never want to separate animals. I never want to go in their way of movement. I always want to have a distance, and there are regulations for this, which are there for a reason. So
Yeah.
it's really important to follow this, and having companies which you can recommend and which you can mention while you know these people really take care of the animals is a good thing. So Safari Ananas, welcome guys.
Well, yeah, those are all things that where I always think that it's so critical and so important to talk to people who have experience, right? You can think about so many things and take care of so many things, but you will never have this kind of experience. Like I would have never. It sounds logical when I hear it, right? But me never being there, never having to interact with the animals, with the environment and everything, there's still so many things that you never consider when you're thinking about it, right? As you said, for example, with the whales, like that even the placement of the boat could like separate the herd or influence the animals in a way that you don't even notice when you don't know.
And going on a whaling trip in a boat, plan a week. Why? You ever photographed from a moving Zodiac? Most likely not.
No.
Have you ever seen a whale close to your Zodiac? No. And like you need a day to get used to operate your camera in a boat. You need one day to have the experience seeing the whale messing all your camera settings up because you are so excited. It's normal, you know?
Yeah.
You might have a day where the weather is bad. You might have a day where you get salt water on your lens and you wipe it all away and it's all nice and sandy and it looks very milky and you messed up all your pictures. And again, it's completely normal.
Yeah.
So give yourself a week.
Yeah, there's a lot going into wildlife photography in general, and in this kind of environment even more so.
And having this peace of mind to know you have another day and you have a little bit of a slow start to get used to all these things makes things a lot nicer.
Yeah, preparation is key.
Yeah. As Amundsen said, there's no adventure, there's only bad planning.
Let that be a lesson, folks. Right. Sunset?
Oh, now we are on Svalbard. This is Spitzbergen. So this is one of the really, really nice moments after polar night when the sun comes back over the horizon and you can sit on your snowmobile and it feels like somebody puts a hairdryer on you because you feel every sunbeam. After a long polar night, the sun returns. Yeah.
You how have you dealt with that? Because it's also right part of the hard environment.
And on
People sometimes forget that.
in Svalbard, it's 3.5 months, so it's a really long dark period. But then you also have a really long bright period because in the summer you have midnight sun and it's not getting dark at all.
Right.
I would say it's harder to deal with the light all the time. It makes it harder to have a proper day schedule. Polar night, if you get your butt out of the bed in the morning, it's a normal winter day. Because when you think about it, like in Germany in the winter, when you leave for work, it's dark. When you come back, it's dark.
I mean, I live in here. We have the always through winter month. I definitely
So there you go.
Yeah, when you said like, after 3.5 months, first time you see the sun, you're gonna sit in the sun and feel the beams. That's exactly how I feel in the city after 3 months of winter. So probably not the same, but still, yeah, I get that you can probably kind of work around that.
It's a bit of a mindset also. And you can meet people and you can cook and bake and have a nice time. And the Norwegians say it's all a bit cozy. So it's a little bit, everything slows down. And it's okay when everything goes a little bit slower and everybody's a little bit more relaxed. But then you have midnight sun and everybody goes bananas and everything goes very quick and everybody needs to work all the time. So I think it's okay. You get used to it.
I think that makes need our rest, right? And during the nighttime, depression, etc., are these kind of regions thing like a topic that well, but I imagine that sun months are even more straining for the human because, as you say, like nature basically tells you to be active all the time. So I imagine people are getting more stressed, etc. Right? Like, have you experienced that firsthand, or is that something where you'll go like, yeah, people talk about it and why I think it is like that, or have you like firsthand experience in living there and experiencing how people in general, like as society, change during different months periods?
First, I need to pick up your sentence. We need to talk about depressions. Yes, we do. And we need to talk about it a lot more open. Did I get stressed or did I experience... Well, what stressed me was you don't get tired for 3 days. Like when the sun comes back and it's bright all the time, you can stay awake for 3 days. You don't have this natural impact that tells you now it's evening, now you need to go to sleep.
Okay. But you don't get tired, like
No.
out of exhaustion? You don't think like, oh god, I just need to lie down and sleep?
No, it really takes quite some time. But then after 3 days, you're really tired, as you can guess. and then you have these... it drains you out. But in the beginning, it's really nice. It's bright and you can just move around and do things and get things done and get things organized. And when you have a company up there and you prepare for a new season, it's obviously not boring. So there's a lot of things you need to do. And then it's a little bit harder to say, okay, now I really need to take a break. And then we have space blankets and soap water, and we put that on the windows to make the rooms dark. So when you walk around in Longyearbyen, you see a lot of space blankets in the winter. That's where it comes from. Just to get the room really dark. Yeah.
They should have like the also something randomly that I learned that a lot of people don't know, the blinds that in Germany, where like the room gets really dark. Apparently I learned that that's like a special thing.
So if you talk about a blind which moves down on your window, good luck in minus 28 degrees.
The thing I was about to say, like there's probably a reason why you don't do that there. Yeah, okay, the cold.
Either it's not going down or it's not coming up again. So that's not something you want to use.
See, another thing that I never would have thought about, but now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, of course.
And when you walk around in Longyearbyen, people always say, oh, it's a messy city. And it's kind of true, because things are standing out in the open, and it looks randomly, and it looks all a little bit like redneck style. But do you really want to put your snowmobile in a garage with a little key and put it underneath a curtain? When you come out and it's minus 28 degrees, it's a winter storm, and then you want to fiddle around with your little garage key? No, you don't. You want to have your snowmobile standing in front of the door so you can jump on it and go, right? And if you have a little trailer or you have your tools and bits and pieces, they need to be available. And pretty is not a topic, really.
It's more about practical and about surviving.
And when you come to other polar environments, go to Greenland, go to Iceland, go to Canada, it's the same thing. We all have the chaotic redneck style, you can say, but it makes perfect sense when you understand why it looks like it looks. But when you come there the first time, it's like people could clean up a bit. I mean, you have different needs, right, and different realities that you live in different regions.
Exactly. All right, let's have a look at some more pictures here. Another sunset, I guess. Sunrise.
This is a very open field. Maybe we can make a switch to the next one.
Yeah, of course.
Arctic sunrise. Greenpeace visiting the Arctic.
Mhm.
I remember this was the campaign where Ludovico Einaudi was on the ship, actually.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
That was the ship where he recorded the elegy in the Arctic.
Yeah, that was this campaign and this ship. This is the Arctic Sunrise, and I believe the Arctic Sunrise is not even with Greenpeace anymore.
We've been talking for 3 or 4 days now. And this is the first time I hear you've been on the same ship as Ludovico Einaudi
Yeah,
as a musician. That's amazing, though.
yeah.
Interesting. For those who don't know, watching, Ludovico Einaudi is a neoclassical composer from Italy, and he has a piece that I also play called Elegy in the Arctic, Elegy for the Arctic. And there's a huge thing that he recorded a music video where he plays like a grand piano on like an ice shelf, where you can hear like while he plays the piece, you hear like the crackling of the ice in the background to raise awareness for melting.
Yeah,
and now we have behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, Arctica, right?
Right, yeah. So we are in Svalbard, we're in the north, and he was playing in the Arctic as well. Yeah. Svalbard as well. The building you see is the ground station from a cable car. And it's a really, really old cable car which was used to go up to a coal mine, an English coal mine. So this is where the coal coming out of this mine would come down to get loaded on a ship. Talking about climate change, what a connection.
It all comes together in the
Yeah,
end, right?
it kind of does. Beautiful glacier, and we are in the Arctic as well. It's a glacier on Svalbard. And what you can see very nice here, you have this purple ice, right? Like this azure blue ice.
Yeah.
So this is a fresh, broken off part. When you drive with guests and you are in a little Zodiac, you want to keep your distance, obviously. Everybody wants to go super close to the glacier, of course, but it really doesn't make so much of a difference. And you want to have at least 400 meters minimum, because when this ice breaks off and it hits the shoreline and not the water, it can fly over the water, and then if you are too close, it might not be so good. You might miss your next birthday. So when you guide and you look at a glacier, you're gonna look at these bright blue spots, because that gives you an idea of how active the glacier is. And yeah,
So the more light blue spots, the more often something breaks off, obviously.
exactly. You wanna have a little bit of a general idea of where you are going, obviously, and when you have been there a few times, you also know this is something I can do, this is something I shouldn't do. But keeping this in mind and being able to tell a little bit about it, giving people an idea about how old is this ice, when has it broken off, what does it mean, where does the meltwater come from, where does it go, what does that mean when we talk about environmental impacts and things like that. You see there's a little bit ice in the water, also very important. This is okay, this is where I can drive with my Zodiac still very fast. If I go into a lot of ice, and there are big pieces of ice floating around in the water, they might damage the propeller of my boat. So now you have ice breaking off from the glacier, and you want to go away very quick, but now you're surrounded by big ice. Welcome to the trap. And this is why the job is called guide and not clown. You know, you need to learn and you need to understand these things. And of course people want to go closer. And of course people want to go extra close and want to stay longer. And this is where the position becomes important. Make people happy, but also make sure everybody is safe and the environment is safe.
I imagine that is a very thin line to balance with, right? Have people been that you've been on with as a tour guide in the Arctic? Have there been instances where you had to actually talk people down into doing something stupid because they thought they knew better? Or are people generally, because they are in such a crazy environment, generally being like thankful for all the advice they can get?
I think it's a mixture a little bit,
Mhm.
and it's not a bad thing. Nobody inspects you to know it all,
Yeah.
and nobody inspects you to understand everything on the first day.
Yeah.
You know, like, you have never been in the Zodiac, you have never been in the
Right.
Arctic environment, you have never been dressed for such an environment, you have never prepared your camera for a day out in the Arctic. Nobody inspects it to know it all. That's what
Yeah.
we're there for. And
Yeah.
yes, you bump or you have little collisions, let's say, especially in the beginning. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
Um,
It's just
but it's
something you know that will happen
it's
to us.
also important to explain your point
Mhm.
and make people able to understand. And usually the second day, the third day, something happens and people say, oh, this is why you're saying that and why
Okay.
we do this. And
People
you
learn
know,
the hard
like,
way in the end.
getting in and out of a Zodiac, we always tell them use the Siemens grip and
Mhm.
don't do this, don't do this. And you might have a really, really nice weather the first 2 days, but then the third day you have more waves. And suddenly it becomes a lot more interesting getting in and out of the Zodiac. And then the Siemens grip suddenly makes so much more sense.
Mm.
These kind of points.
Yeah.
And again, it's completely normal.
Yeah, people need to learn by experience as well in the end, right? You can tell them all you want, there's always going to be someone who's like, yeah, probably he just says that for safety measures, but probably it's not that important, and then it is.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, like, it's like Northern Lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all tourist nonsense and it's all advertisements. There are no Northern Lights until you see them.
Mm.
And everybody wants to photograph the polar bear. Of course, everybody wants to photograph the polar bear.
Yeah.
And sometimes we see them and sometimes we don't. You know, it's not a zoo.
Yeah.
We
of
can't
course.
open the door and there's the polar bear.
Yeah.
And people book the surrounding of Svalbard. But then there's ice.
Mm.
Yeah, it's nature, it's an environment.
Yeah, you have
and
to
and
adapt.
we cannot push the ice away.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can do a surrounding and sometimes you can't. That's why we call it expedition.
Yeah.
And it still is an expedition.
There's things that money can't buy after all, right? You can't make nature do things you want it.
And isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is.
You know,
Believe me, people who watch my channel know that that's something that
And I think we live in an environment and we live in a society where we can do so many things by button, by app, by everything
Yeah.
is ready.
Yeah.
And then you come to the polar regions and suddenly it stops. I
Yeah.
think it's beautiful.
The world doesn't revolve around you anymore, and I
Yeah.
think that's probably something more people should experience, I guess.
And it comes a bit back to basic needs. You know,
Yeah.
you want to be warm, you want to eat, you want to be dry. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very primal experience in the end, you could say,
Yeah.
in a way. Yeah. Is this something you also being deployed in disaster areas as well, right? As a medic, and now with the extreme conditions in the polar region, what is something that you would say you've learned through all the time, basically? Like you just said, right? There's certain things that you just need to experience. What was something, and that gives you a different perspective of the world, I guess, like being basically reduced to filling your basic needs again, right? There's something more where we would say that's something that I took with me from all these experiences.
I think we are very lucky to live in a society and in an environment we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to put a bigger focus on education.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about Europe in general, we need more books, not more tanks. You know, like we really need to, when we understand the world we live in,
Yeah.
it makes a lot more sense to be relaxed and peaceful to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
if
fair
you
enough.
have experienced these conflict zones and conflict areas, trust me, nobody needs that and nobody wants it.
Yeah.
And I think education, teachers, schools, universities are the most powerful tools we have.
Do you think that people should travel to these kind of locations more often to get these experiences firsthand versus learning about them at university, for example, or school?
please don't travel to war zones. No, I don't think you need to experience. I mean, traveling is of course a beautiful way to learn about the world and to understand the world a little bit better.
Yeah.
And experience things. I wouldn't recommend traveling to war zones, and I don't think it's necessary. I think traveling in general helps a lot understanding things a little bit better and getting different perspectives on things.
But like, don't put yourself unnecessarily in danger for that. Is what you're saying.
Yes, and if you I mean, talk to people who come from war zones and have lived in war zones, they will tell you they are very happy that they are not in there anymore.
Yeah. Which should come to as no big surprise, right?
Absolutely, but you know, when we look at, I don't think we should talk too much about politics. Makes me sad. But when we look at the world as it is now, and when we look at where we are going, it feels like we're walking backwards, and it's a scary thing for me.
Yeah.
So making things better, moving things forward, connecting instead of dividing, I think it's important.
I totally agree. Yeah. All right. Let's move on with the pictures a bit.
Welcome to Russia. We are in Barentsburg. Is that right? Is this Barentsburg or Pyramiden? No, it's Barentsburg. So we have we are back on Svalbard. So we are in the high Arctic, and we have two Russian settlements on Svalbard. One is Barentsburg, which is a coal mining city, and we have Pyramiden too. It's more like an abandoned village, which is only used for tourism. Talking about the world is changing. Obviously, this has a massive impact on Svalbard as well, and I'm not gonna comment on that. But yeah, that's where this picture is taken.
Yeah.
Same place. It's a wooden tunnel going up to the mine. Oh, we are still on Svalbard, and we are on the opposite side from Adventfjorden. So if you look to the right, you can see a little bit of water. There's a fjord. And if you would make a 90-degree turn to the right, you would look at Longyearbyen. It's the capital of Svalbard. We are standing on top of the mountain, and there's a wooden barrack in the background. That's the entry to the mine, which was up there.
Okay. Different mine from the one we just saw.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
I need to go a little bit.
Looks like a glacier in the back. Yeah, it's a bit small for us. Sorry about that.
So yeah, Adventfjorden, close to the same picture we looked at before. It's just a little bit more to the left. Yeah, but also on Svalbard. Svalbard as well. And you can see this wooden construction, this wooden tower on the right. Very interesting. All the coal mines were connected with the cable car. So you had like a big bucket, big enough to put 3 people in. And these buckets were used to transport the coal from the mine down to the harbor near Longyearbyen.
So was there in general a lot of mining industry, etc. in Sweden and Norway in general?
Yes. So we had 8 coal mines in the beginning, I believe, which were Norwegian. Then you had Norwegian coal mines. And mine 7 was the last one, which is visible in this picture on the mountain in the back. That was the coal mine which provided the coal to run Longyearbyen, to run the capital of Svalbard. Now the energy system is completely changing. They have a different power plant, and they are working with new modern energies. So coal mining is a little bit keeping the flag in the ground, like especially for the Russians. Keeping Barentsburg operational to have a reason to be there, kind of. But if you look at Svalbard from the position, and you look at the passage to China, and it's a geopolitical thing.
Yeah.
There you can see the wooden barrack a little bit better. Now you also understand the fjord I was talking on. So we are on the opposite side from Longyearbyen again.
I see, that's the cabin you said.
Yeah, and
Before was in the
that's
hike,
one
right?
of the things you can do with the tourist groups.
Mm-hmm.
You grab a kayak, so you cross the fjord by kayak, and then you hike up the mountain, have a really nice view from up there, hike down again and go back by kayak.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do this as a guide and you do it 2 or 3 times a week, then you have really deserved your payment. It's a good exercise.
Nice. Someone, since we have a few questions in chat, or sometimes a question in chat here as well, I just throw them in since we don't have too many, right? And they don't
Absolutely.
distract us. Thistle Vixen in chat asks, for these timber structures, they'll have needed trees. Are there many forests in these harsh areas, or will the timber have been brought there?
Good question. So you have no trees at all? Okay, now I'm getting slapped by the biologist. So we have trees on Svalbard and they are about that high.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a plant which has a trunk, that's why it's classified as a tree, but you can they are about that high. So where does the wood come from? It's driftwood, and it's driftwood from the east mainly. So it's driftwood from Russia and from eastern part.
Interesting.
Which has been used for Svalbard, on Svalbard for construction since the early days.
And there's just like a constant supply basically
Yes.
on that. It's not like they are dependent on if there's something coming down the river or not, basically.
Well, you find enough to
Yeah.
work with it.
So there's no shortage. So Thistle, I hope that answers your question. Kaleidoscopy, welcome in chat, asks, any chance the echo can be adjusted a little on your side? Oh, okay, so we do have a little bit of echo on this screen. It will be reduced on the different screen later on. So for now, we can't. I'm sorry if you're experiencing that. I can try to get a bit away from the other mic for that. So let's continue with the pictures.
Yeah.
Once we're finished with them, we can go back to the other screen and won't have that issue. All right. Still same place here?
Yeah. The same place, same shoreline, I believe. I'm seeing the photo really small, so yeah, I would say Adventfjorden from what I can see from here. That looks like one of the glaciers in front of the Russian settlements. So you have in Barentsburg and in Pyramiden, you have pretty much on the opposite side of the fjord a glacier.
Yeah.
And when you go there with the ship, it's usually one of the places where the ship will stop and you have time to take some pictures, and sometimes you're lucky. On this glacier, on the left, you can see there's an island coming out. You see the rock structure.
Right.
That's a good place to look for polar bears.
Oh, interesting. And there's like a lot of, since you said that before, a lot of this blue ice as well, right?
Summer season, so we are in the Arctic summer, so the glacier is quite active, and that's where you see, or why you see so much broken off ice.
Yeah, I see.
Russian settlements, one of the old wooden structure we had there before. You have in Longyearbyen as well, you have these wooden structures which are used to hide the cables. It looks like a wooden tunnel kind of, and that's where all the power lines and where all the supply lines run in. Because again, if you wanna do some maintenance in the winter, you don't wanna dig it out of the frozen ground. So you put it in a wooden box, have it on top, and that makes it a lot easier. And you have these kind of wooden structures in the Russian settlement as well. This is like a pier you walk on to reach the different buildings. Typical Arctic landscape. Something you see when you go on a hike.
There we got the same settlement again, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Going on a
Let's
hike
talk
on
about
Svalbard, and suddenly you are in the fog. Sometimes it's a fog, sometimes it's a bit of a blizzard, and you have a whiteout. So here is where you need to know your surroundings. You need to know the trail, and you want to bring a GPS. Because if you look at this picture, now imagine you have a map and you have a compass. great, but what's your reference point,
Yeah.
right? So there is where a GPS becomes a powerful tool.
Yeah. And I imagine these, I mean, maybe not nearby, I don't know how far away this is from the settlement, right? But some situations like this are also where to go back to your telemedicine project, right? Where it's also important to have something to actually talk to the people on the other side, right? If you're, for example, in a foggy or in a snowstorm or something like that you can't control, and all of a sudden someone is having a seizure or something, right?
Depending on what you're doing, and like let's say you're on a research trip,
Mhm.
you have to stay out for longer periods of time, and then you have an emergency or
Yeah.
somebody gets injured, and you can't evacuate because of weather like this, for
Mhm.
example, then a telemedicine tool becomes very important because you can start your treatment right on the spot, and you have medical overwatch which can help you.
Yeah.
Good example for telemedicine.
So for anyone who has just recently joined, today's donations will also go toward Kai's project, which is basically a telemedicine tool to be used in extreme environments and have a stable connection to experts and medical professionals on the other side, basically to help medics in extreme environments treat patients. And we are currently looking to fund the some parts for the prototype that are still missing, looking at around 200 euros, you said, right?
That would be good.
But every little bit you are able to give today helps, and we've got something for you in return as well to say thanks. Everyone donating over $10 will get access to the pictures you just saw. Those are high resolution pictures who are ready for prints, for example. If you want to hang something nice on your wall, remind you that you want to do that Arctic trip. And we also have, for people who donate $25 or more, we've got an ebook that Kai wrote about his experiences in the Arctic regions or the polar regions. If you're interested in that, !Kai in chat will give you also a few links to find out more about Kai's work. And with that, let's get back to pictures. Let's see, I think we have a few left.
Yeah, I think we have seen enough glaciers. Can you switch to the next one?
Of course.
Oh, more
But
glaciers.
just to give people a little bit of an idea.
Welcome to the
welcome
polar
in,
regions.
Sasha. More glaciers. It's so interesting. Ever since you gave some additional info, right, on things like the ice, on things like how close can you get.
You look at it differently.
I look at it differently, yes, and that's exactly what you said earlier, right? Education is key. We're not talking about like having a degree in polar something, right? We're just talking about these basic infos that you just learn along
But you
the
know,
way.
I mean, I can talk about glaciers for ages, but like we talked about the brighter blue spots where we can see the ice broke off.
Mhm.
So now we talk about we have more rain.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? More rain means more warm water, which goes on top of the glacier. So you have meltwater channels, which are normal, but now you have warm water in the meltwater channels. So you start to hollow out your glacier.
Right.
So that's where people say, hey, when we look at Greenland and we look at the radar data, we find large lakes inside the ice. We find huge channels of water in the middle of the ice. Nobody knows how long it will take before these massive parts of ice break off. And this is where we talk about climate change. This is where we have, when we come back after 1 year and I look at my GPS where I made the marks, how close I can go to the glacier, every year I am surprised and I'm a little bit shocked how much closer I can go. And I know what people think, but you have a visual impact every year on the ice that disappears.
Not even about like 5 or 10 years. It's like you literally see it personally yourself each year.
Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I guess these kind of water basins inside the ice are also what we talk about when we say that eventually the sea levels will rise also, right? Because if that water is released, I guess,
Now
next to the melting,
now we
of
need
course,
to be a
right,
bit specific.
Uh-huh.
So the Arctic freezes, right?
Right.
So it's seawater freezing and it's seawater melting. That's not changing the sea level. But Greenland is ice on land. And if you melt that ice, it's additional water in the ocean.
Yeah.
And that makes a massive impact.
Yeah.
So if we change that, it's not only the level, the seawater level. We are changing the amount of clear water. We are having, we have melt water, which is not seawater, so it has a different salinity level, which is having an impact on the density of the water.
Oh, okay.
So what does that do with the Gulf Stream? Do we know that? No, we don't. But we're still driving when fuel is €1.60 alone in the car.
Yeah.
It's like nuclear power. Let's just give it a try. Something will happen. You know, it's crazy.
We'll deal with it after.
It's,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have I'm not gonna have a speech on climate change. We all know what's going on.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, we are gambling, and we are gambling in a really, really, really risky environment. And when we talk about extreme weather, we haven't even started.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if it affects the Gulf Stream, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's another big, huge topic you can talk
Yeah.
hours about, right? Which we don't want to do here right now today, but still, I mean, you gotta talk about it at least shortly, because it is something that you get in touch with there, right?
We can't talk about the polar regions without talking a little bit about it. But we fix one problem after another, and now we start with telemedicine.
We start with changing what we can, right?
Exactly.
And that's something you want to do, and that's great. Right, let's see. We have another, I think. Oh no.
Pasvik,
another one?
we are back in the northern part of Norway. We are back in this beautiful national park. If you come up there in the summer, bring mosquito repellent. There are a lot. But it's a beautiful area, and if you go in the winter, make sure you bring a friend. It's a harsh environment. It gets very, very cold. You want to have a buddy traveling there.
How warm does it get to in the summer though? Since you said they have an issue with mosquitoes, I always thought that's more.
It can go up to 20 something. Gets very warm, and it's a very wet area.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So where I'm standing there, taking this picture, is a lake. I'm standing on a frozen lake. Svalbard.
Oh, that's a beautiful picture though.
Bukta, East Coast. It's a day trip, but you spend a lot of time on the snowmobile. It's a beautiful area to go. And you pass an area which is called Svea, a former Swedish mine. That's a good place to stay overnight if you want to do this as a snowmobile trip. One of the things you want to do is a guided tour, but a beautiful area. Yeah.
It looks like it. When you've been around too much and don't know where the pictures were taken.
No, I know exactly where it is. I'm trying to remember the name. It's a Svalbard Wildlife is the company you want to look up. Red and yellow logo. They do a kayak trip for, I believe, 6 or 7 days. That's where you go into this area and you stay in a tent for almost a week with your group, and you do polar bear watch as well, and you are really getting a beautiful experience, and you're close to this glacier. Beautiful area for going on a trip.
And also
I was there.
Very well reachable. You said.
I was there with a boat from Switzerland, with a group of students from Switzerland being on a little research project. Yeah, beautiful location. Oh, completely different side of the planet. Now we are traveling to Antarctica, and you can see.
It's not a penguin.
No,
from here.
it's not a penguin. Yeah, one of the beautiful things you can see when you cross the Drake Passage is having the birds coming very close to the ship, and you can get some really nice shots.
Nice. Since you've been both to Arctica and Antarctica,
please don't ask. What's the more beautiful place?
Well, that could be a question as well. I would have asked like where which experience was more interesting to you, basically, but probably the one that you did first, right?
No, I wouldn't make a comparison between the Arctic and the Antarctic.
Are there some main differences, you would say, when it comes to traveling in both of these regions? Because I guess for a lot of people it seems mostly the same, right? It's just a cold, harsh environment where not a lot of people go to. But are there like some key differences, or is it like mostly the same?
No. The scale in Antarctica is a completely different story. So when you come to Greenland, for example, you have icebergs in the water. And they are like, I don't know, 25 meters high and 50, 60 meters wide.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to Antarctica, you have icebergs in the size of 2 countries.
Jesus.
So you have huge pieces of ice in the size of a country floating around. So that should answer the question quite well. We're talking about a really different scale. But again, I'm not saying the Arctic is less beautiful or less interesting. If you're interested in wildlife and if you're interested in the polar regions in general, if you have been through the polar books and you know a little bit about polar history, it's beautiful to travel in the Arctic. And Greenland is amazing. Like Svalbard is amazing. I mean, yeah.
There's the reason why you're there.
Yeah. It's definitely a beautiful place to go.
Is there like a key difference when it comes to both regions in preparation, etc., and in the trip itself or traveling there?
So Antarctica is a really, really pricey adventure. It's really, really expensive to travel to Antarctica.
How is that? Like, why is that compared to like traveling to the Arctic?
So if we would decide to travel to the Arctic, we could go to an airplane probably today and make it at least to Norway. And we could probably make it to Svalbard today. There's no way you do this with Antarctica. Like, you fly from here. Last time I went to Antarctica, I was from Germany to Spain. Like Norway, Germany, Spain, Buenos Aires, so Argentina's capital, and then from there it's another flight. So we're talking about like 2.5 days just for the flying.
Yeah.
And then it takes 3.5 days to cross by ship the Drake Passage. And the logistics, of course, are a lot more complicated because you need to provide the ship with all the food and all the things. So also for the companies who organize trips to Antarctica, it's a lot more challenging.
Yeah.
And it's something that is a little bit more exclusive still. If you're a backpacker and you want to travel to Antarctica and you have really the motivation to do it, travel to Ushuaia by yourself, organize yourself a trip to Argentina, to Ushuaia, and then go in the summer season and just go down to the harbor and ask if people have spots which are still available. And then if you're lucky to get one of these spots, we still talk $4,500.
Yeah.
So we are talking about a lot of money going to Antarctica.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it's a good idea to work there. Which is not as hard as people think.
Walking there.
Yeah. Like if you're a seaman, you obviously can work on a ship. But if you're a chef, every ship going with tourists has chefs on board.
Yeah.
If you are a geologist, if you're a historian, if you are a nurse, if you're a doctor, if you are a photographer, all these people come on trips.
Yeah.
So, and don't listen to other people. If you want to go to the polar regions, go to the polar regions. Everybody's gonna tell you you're not gonna work.
Yeah.
Don't believe them. You can.
Yeah. Nice. Well, it's a bit pricey for some people, right? But still, it's more doable than something.
And again, you know, like do your own research project.
Yeah.
Come up with something you wanna do. You start a project as a photographer and start photographing in the polar regions. Do something about wildlife. Make some wildlife research, do something about orcas, do something about whales, do something about seals. There's a million options. And again, don't listen to other people, do it.
Yeah. Which is also what you did, right? With your project. You said like a lot of people were like, yeah, we could need this, but and you were like, nope, let's actually get the work done.
But the thing is that if we don't start, how do we know it's working or not?
How are we gonna get there? Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. All right, let's have a look at some more.
Oh yeah, that's Antarctica as I love it, like it. That's a
your whole face lights up when you see that image.
That's a beautiful day in Antarctica, and it's a beautiful spot with the ship. Really, really nice perspective on the ice. So that's like shoreline, you can say, from the ice, and you have this larger pieces of ice floating around. Nunavut. We have a glacier covering the mountain, but not the mountain peaks. Yeah, beautiful scene in Antarctica. And again, back to Svalbard. We're flying fast today. So we are standing on the sea ice. We are at the east coast, and we are looking at these little bumps sticking out of the ice. This is when the bay pushes in more ice from the sea, and then the sea ice breaks open and it pushes itself up. This is what you're seeing there, and this can be so big that you drive around it with a snowmobile.
Wow, okay.
So we're talking about like 10-15 meters high and 6-7 meters wide. Why do you need to drive around? You want to make sure there's no polar bear behind it before you get down, right? Yeah, but it's an important point. You're on the sea ice. That's where the polar bears hunt. So you want to have a look and make sure there's no wildlife too close to you. Another glacier, the Arctic. Same place where I recommended to go with Svalbard Wildlife on a kayak expedition. And you can see you can actually walk relatively close to these glaciers. If you stay in the right spot and you keep your distance, it's totally fine, totally safe. Same glacier. We are standing on the left side, so if I would turn 90 degrees to the left, I would look at a rock. There's no glacier. And you can see there's a photographer standing closer to the water. So that was a guided photo expedition I did. And you can see relatively close to the glacier, but still totally fine. Looks a lot closer than it is.
So you traveled there as a tour guide, guiding the photographers, right? Not as part of the expedition doing photography?
No, I was guiding a group photographers doing a photo trip on Svalbard. Yeah.
Oh, summer wildlife.
One of our not so fluffy friends. Walrus colony, Polepünten. If you're sitting at your computer, open Topo Svalbard. It's a map. Go up to the west coast of Svalbard. You see an island group called Prince Karl's Forceland. In the middle of that island, on the right side, is a small spot called Polepünten. That's where the walrus colony is. That's where this picture is taken.
These walruses are also way larger than 1.8
tons for a male. If you want to photograph a walrus, stand behind the walrus, and you have yourself, the walrus, the water. Never stand between a group of walrus and the water. If 1.8 tons decide to go for a swim and you are in the way, you go for a swim as well.
And you don't want that.
No. New Ålesund is a research village on Svalbard. You can't stay there if you're not a researcher. You can visit, but you can't stay. And
how many people are there staying there? How many researchers?
Depends a little bit on the research they do, but I would say 100 something. And this is the post office, the post building.
So these research villages are established for making it easier for people to work together, or
Yeah, and it's a beautiful place. You have a very international group of researchers. You have the Chinese research station with the little dragon, looks a bit like a Chinese restaurant. Different nationalities, different groups. You have the Alfred Wigner Institute sharing a research station with our French cooperation partners, colleagues doing research in the polar regions.
So everyone just shares resources and
yeah.
Right, we got a little bit of the sea.
Yeah, evening picture, evening shot. Oh yeah, sea ice. This is Fredheim. This is we are looking at Tempelfjorden. There was an incident with a polar bear relatively recently, where people saw a polar bear too late. I'm not gonna comment on that, but yeah. Fredheim is a cabin which has a lot of polar history. Very popular day trip to go to.
What do you mean by it has a history?
So the cabin was used by hunters. The cabin was used by the governor for a period of time. There is a story where a woman was pregnant and her husband had to row back to get a doctor, and then after days he returned and she already had a baby. And yeah, if people are interested in polar history, Fredheim gives you a good starting point. We already know that is the mining tunnel.
Right?
We have seen that before. The ground station of the coal mine.
Just different perspective than before, I think.
Northern Norway, Vardø. Looks like a Viking ship turned upside down. It's art, actually. It's an artist who did this. If you're interested in photography and you like to photograph birds, check out Birding Varanger, the northern part of Norway, the Finnmark region, and Vardø in particular is a beautiful spot for photographing birds. And a polar fox. A very small one, and there's a very long story to this picture.
Okay, you want to tell it?
I'm gonna compress it as good as I can. I was a guide being out with a group of photographers, and the photographers went after the animals and were sitting right in front of the exit of the animals, which made me a little bit grumpy, to be polite. I was very angry, to be honest. First of all, it's a very, very bad thing for me as a guide, because if the governor would see something like that, I would be in big trouble. You are not allowed to do this at all. So I was very angry at them and told them that if something like that would happen ever again, we would go home the next day and I wouldn't care how much they paid for the trip. And I really meant it. Because as a wildlife photographer, you don't chase animals. That's just a really, really big no-go. You want to find yourself a good spot and wait. And so we talked about this. Everybody was a little bit angry that I was so angry at them. So we were sitting in the grass and everybody was a little bit grumpy at each other. And the next thing we saw was Mama polar fox coming with a big bird. And she dropped the bird and all the small polar foxes came out of the hide and shared the bird. And we had about 60 minutes photographing polar foxes very, very close, and that's where this picture was created.
And in the end, you were lucky enough, and they're probably
and nature proved my point. That was the best thing.
Yeah. I find it so difficult to understand personally. If someone would go into a region like that, right? Into a region so different from what you're used to, and still not listen to the people who are appointed. We're specifically appointed at telling you what you should do, what you shouldn't, what you are allowed to do.
Looking at it with a little bit of difference, I would probably react different now. Because, you are a wildlife photographer, you're very passionate about what you're doing.
On the other hand, though, if you're a wildlife photographer and not just photographing animals for fun, you should know about this, right?
Yes. I think it's maybe it's a little bit more guiding in advance, explaining things in advance, to be fair, and picking people up where they come from. And on the end,
learn, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There we go.
Nice.
Maybe we see the... Oh no, we don't.
Maybe we do later. The photos are a bit mixed up.
Lofoten Islands. It's a beach which you can reach from Rheine, from the village we talked about earlier. You can take a ship and you can go to this little beach. It's a 40 minutes hike maybe. Beautiful place to go and
just wanted to
put
say
up a tent.
The colors look amazing in this. Like you said before, if I remember correctly, that those images are not photoshopped or anything at all.
Oh no, like they are edited.
They are edited.
They are
okay,
edited.
they are
Yeah,
edited.
yeah.
All right.
Because these are photographs I have I've had in my shop and I offered for sale. So they are edited. Like not all of them a lot, but
yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Right, and I think that was the last one actually. No, there's another one.
no,
Why
this
there a
is
blick?
this is Asgard Bukta, and this is one of these very large ice structures I was talking about. So this is something you can surround with a snowmobile. This is really big. This is like 5, 6, 7 meters high.
Can't see from here. Is there like a little tower to the right, or is that ice as well?
It's all ice.
It's all ice.
Yeah. Same area, same structure.
And Mr. Sias says in chat, who's also, as far as I know, a hobby photographer, says, great pictures, I like them.
Thank you.
So if you're interested in those pictures, today, to reference to that once again, I need to remind myself. Today we are collecting funds, so everything, every donation that comes towards the stream today, because we haven't set up a specific way, right? Will go 100% to Kai's research and Kai's current project in telemedicine. If you want to know more about that, you can use either the command in chat or watch the VOD later. We talked about it a little bit more earlier in the stream about what he's working on currently. And he has about 200 euros of funding. He still needs to finish the current prototype, which would advance him as well in securing more funds from official parts. Official, how do you say in English? Well, you know what I mean, folks. So yeah, and every donation over $10 today will get a link to all these pictures where you can download them and use them for prints, for example, since they are high res, or just look at them because they're beautiful and you're also supporting a good cause. And everything over 25 will additionally get also Kai's ebook with over 100 pages of infos on the polar regions and his work there. Where's the donation link? It's the usual, Sasha. So you can go through Ko-fi, you can go through other means that I have set up. I just will know that every donation coming in today will go towards Kai's work, and I will transfer to him. And we will also get probably some updates right in the future.
Oh, absolutely.
Once the thing is finished, you might provide some images, some info on it, and I can also let people know.
If people follow polarmedic.net, my website, you will find a point where it says Research Antarctica. That's where we have the latest information on what we have done already.
Yeah.
And there's also a menu point which says News, where you can see where we have published information and where we got articles explaining more in detail what we are doing.
Yeah.
And there will definitely be updates about the project on this website.
Perfect. I'll also link the website if it's not here. Or if people don't see it here, I can also link it later. Once there's news, I'll also have a look out on it because I'm also interested in what's happening with it. And I can post on Discord, Insta, etc. and that give people a few updates as well in the future, so they know what's happening with your work. Perfect.
Yeah, Lofoten again. The beach we saw earlier. This is the hiking part you have to do. Like the fjord you see. The ship drops you off on the right side in the beginning of this fjord. So this is what you have to walk. And where I'm standing, where I'm taking this picture, is where you walk over the mountain before you come down to the beach.
And I just saw I actually have a first donation coming in from Sasha. So thank you so much
Thank you
for
very
that.
much, Sasha.
I don't have my page with me right now. I think. Wait, I can check. But we will contact you depending on the amount to get the link later, etc. Thank you so much. Sorry, didn't want to disturb, but we should go to the next picture, or
Yeah, I think so.
Even more.
Yeah, same area. That's where the ship drops you off. That's the pier. So it's all in the same area, these group of photos.
Mm-hmm. So just saying that, by the way, we got 100 euros from Sasha just now. So thank you so much. This is about half of the funding already for the
kind of speechless hearing that. Thank you very much. That's big. That's massive for me. You know, like, it sounds a bit funny, but when you do this so long, and I'm working on this for 5 years now.
On this specific project, right?
From the idea we need telemedicine to where we are now, it's 5 years. Yeah. And when you do this by yourself, and yes, we got support. We had people helping us with the trip to Antarctica and bringing us on a ship, and we had help with people helping us with the research. But you know, like, it's a long road. It needs a lot of passion for such a project. It needs a long breath to keep things going.
Yeah.
And the 100 euros are great, but also seeing that people care is as big as 100 euros as well.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see that people support such a cause. That's great.
I agree. So thank you so much again, Sasha. You made a big difference, man. You made a big difference. Wait, here we go. Oh.
Lofoten, Asgard, Bukta. I feel like we are seeing the same area. Can we switch like a few pictures and I say stop?
Yeah, of course.
Asgard.
All pictures here. I'll just leave them all
Yeah.
for a few seconds so people can watch them. We have a few people probably joining during the stream who haven't seen the first few pictures.
Oh, Longyearbyen, so capital of Svalbard. Sarkophagen is the name of the mountain.
Is there a reason for it?
Yeah, the shape of the mountain.
Okay.
And we are standing pretty much in between two glaciers. So you have Larsbreen and Longyearbyen, the two glaciers which are very, very close to the city. And yeah, beautiful day hike.
Nice.
I think we have a few more pictures from... No.
Again, I apologize if they're all over the place.
Oh god. Moenbukta. Day trip by snowmobile. You drive on top of this glacier when you come to Moenbukta, and then you drive down on the sea ice and you can drive in front of the glacier front. Unique place to go for a day trip. That's where this picture is taken. And we are on a hiking trip on Svalbard. Yeah. So this is the coastline. This is like the summer, and we are walking along the coastline now. Glacier, surprise. Asgard,
Oh wow,
Bukta
that
again.
looks amazing as well.
Oh, northern Norway, Finnmark. So we are on the west coast, high up in the north of Norway, on a rocky coastline. I try to remember the name of the village, but I can't. Midtun, sorry. Yeah.
I find it already like amazing that you still remember all these places.
I mean, I took the picture.
Of
so,
course, but
yeah,
still.
Yeah.
I jinxed it.
No, Paulabreen. I talked about when I said you want to make a stop in Svea when you drive to Asgard Bukta. I know it's hard, but look at Topo Svalbard, look at the map. Check Paulabreen is pretty much on the opposite side from the fjord when you look at Svea, which was a Swedish mine and is becoming a research center now. Yeah, very good thing. Research is always good. Oh, a little bit Northern Lights. Here we go. Aurora Borealis.
A lot of people would probably, especially since you worked as a guide, I guess a lot of people come to these kind of regions just for that, right?
I like going out for Northern Lights, especially with people who have never seen them before. It's a nice experience to share.
Is it that different seeing them live compared to seeing them on an image?
So when you have the beginning of Northern Lights, or you have relatively weak Northern Lights, you can make them visible with your camera, but you can't see them with your naked eye.
Okay.
And then people say, oh, it's all cheating and it's all nonsense and it's all black magic and blah, blah, blah. But when you come down a bit and you think about it, if I have a 7-second exposure or I have a 15-second exposure, of course I'm collecting more light, right?
Right.
So from a physical point, it's totally logical.
Yeah.
But you can have Northern Lights being so strong that you can see this with your naked eye and it's even moving on the sky. And that's, of course, where it becomes an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And here, it's photographed on Lofoten. So I told you there's this arm coming out from the west coast. So we are talking about an island group coming out into the sea.
Right.
And it's a mountain ridge. So if you have clouds, where do all the clouds get stuck?
Around these mountains.
So it's a risky place to go for Northern Lights. But if you have Northern Lights and you have clear sky, you have this beautiful reflections in the water and you have the wet beaches, which also function as a mirror. So for a photographer,
like heaven.
As I said, bring time. You know, like being on Lofoten in the winter in a snowstorm is beautiful as well, even if you don't see Northern Lights. But yeah, if you have the time, go. Please go.
Do you still remember the first time you saw Northern Lights?
Yeah. Which was funny. It was neither in Norway, not in Svalbard. It was in Canada, in Dawson City, sitting on a campground from a former German who is running a campground there now. He wrote an amazing book about the Yukon, by the way. So if people want to paddle down the Yukon. Yeah.
But did you expect to see them?
No,
there?
not at all.
So
we were sitting there having a glass of wine, talking about our
oh my god.
Canoe trip, which ended in Dawson. We were supposed to get picked up there, going back to Whitehorse, and sitting on this wooden bench and just having a glass of wine when somebody said, "What's that?"
Is there a better moment to be surprised by Northern Lights than just sitting outside in good company with a glass of wine?
Probably not.
I mean, you hit the jackpot. That's way better than being on like an expedition and being like super hyped about it because you know you want to see them. That's amazing. Like, I don't think a lot of people have that experience.
Oh, Westeralen. Don't fly your drone in such conditions. By the way, it's a drone picture, as you can see. So the village is called Nyksund. Look it up. I'm not gonna tell you. Look up the history of Nyksund. And when you come to Nyksund, say hello to Semyon from Kai.
So
and I'm not gonna tell you anything more. Look, if you wanna know what it is, what makes Nyksund special, you send me a message on my website and you tell me why the teacher from Berlin has a connection to Nyksund. That's your homework.
All right.
Glacier on Svalbard. Svalbard as well, on the way to Pyramiden.
Like, do they have like a lot of, like we have like Pyramiden, you say?
Pyramiden and Barentsburg are the two Russian settlements, and Pyramiden is called Pyramiden because there is a large mountain next to the village, and the peak looks like a
pyramid.
Yeah, like
I
the shape.
just wanted to ask because before that we had a mountain looking like a sarcophagus. There we go. Yeah, sarcophagus. So I thought, like, do they have like some connection to Egypt culture for some reason?
Yeah. Funny story when it comes to names, since like we are moving to the northern part of Norway now. We are going to a place called Kirkenes. Kirkenes in German. It's very close to the Russian border. And there are 3 lakes in that settlement. And they had some Sami names. Very long indigenous names.
Yeah.
And nobody could remember the names. Now they are called Lake 1, 2, and 3. So talking about giving things practical names, there's a history of it in Scandinavia.
I see. By the way, folks, since we went a bit over time, or it took a bit longer with the pictures, if you guys have any questions in chat, we'll be here for another, I would say, half hour. What do you say? Is that fine with you? So more or less about half an hour. I think it's about 2 p.m. right now. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in chat. I'm having an eye on chat and letting Kai know, and he's doing his best to answer them. So if you have any questions regarding his work, regarding polar expeditions in general, but also regarding his work as a medic, right, in extreme conditions, such as also disaster areas, war zones, etc., please feel free to ask them in chat.
Sorry, I have to...
Yeah, that one's a bit too small.
Oh yeah, so I told you about the wooden structures functioning as a cable car network. So
Right.
that's one of these structures.
Welcoming Yanni, by the way.
Coastline, hiking on the coastline. I can't tell where that is.
That's the first.
Yeah.
We did it, guys. We found one picture. He doesn't know where it was taken.
I mean, we can see it's a glacier on the right.
That doesn't count. I need a
I
name.
think I'm wrong. It's not a hike. We are on the water. I think it's on the west coast, on the way to New Orleans, but I wouldn't sign that. I'm not 100% sure.
Probably West Coast.
Yeah.
Right, and I think we're
Yeah,
at the
that's
beginning,
that's
right?
Lofoten. That's the
Alright.
first picture again.
Then
So hopefully you find at least one picture you liked.
let's go back here. Yeah. So since we are at the end of the pictures, again, if you want any of those as a high-res download, we have prepared a folder for you guys in case you want to check them out. Every donation over $10 today towards Kai's project gets access to that folder, access to downloading the pictures. All right. Since we don't have a lot of questions in chat right now, at least. Oh, there is a question. Perfect.
There we
Annie,
go.
thank you for saving me. It says, a question indeed, but off topic a bit. Are there any songs about this special area or poems maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know about that?
I like your question.
It's a music-related question. I like it too. You're bringing us together here on common ground.
And I have a few good recommendations. So, Song of Svalbard, written by a polar guide. Amazing song. You should be able to find it on YouTube, I believe. It's about leaving for a Svalbard surrounding on a ship. It talks about 200 tons of Danish steel. The ship he is talking about is the MS Expedition. It's a ship we went on to Antarctica. So that's a very good one. Then we have the Zodiac Driver. So there is a song about a Zodiac Driver written by a musician who is going with Adventure Canada on trips together with a guest. So that's a very typical polar guide song. Then you have the Polar Bear song,
The polar
which is really nice. It sounds like a children's song in the beginning. Listen to the whole song. It's actually a really good song. It talks about climate change and the not so funny impacts.
Yeah. Well, we had Elegy for the Arctic by an Audi, right? We had Elegy for the Arctic by an Audi, right?
Yeah.
Where we learned that you've been on the same ship.
Yeah. So these are the first I would say you can look up. These are the guide playlist. So that's very popular songs.
Maybe we should look into them sometime and do some covers on stream as well.
I can make sure I give you a copy.
Oh,
I have them. I have them with
course.
me. Yeah.
And for those interested, I can also, once I get the songs you just mentioned, I can also post a list on our Discord as well for the people who want to check on it later. So you don't have to worry if you didn't write down really fast like all the names right now, or you don't know how to write Svalbard. That's not an issue. I'll provide you with the links later. All right, but thanks for the question, Yanni. We are on a short ad break right now, which will count a few people on chat because they get like a few people can't hear us right now. Is there anything regarding your polar expeditions that you think people don't know about that you're dealing with that when going there? Like next to, we had like your whole issue, that's kind of your pet project right now with telemedicine, right? So being reachable and having access to important input from experts, etc. in certain environments and in certain situations. Is there anything else you would go like, okay, when people think about polar expeditions or when people think about going to Antarctica, that is something they don't realize or they don't think about? That maybe you were also surprised by when you went there first time. I mean, you had obviously you had like a lot of experience as well in like harsh environments.
No. I was surprised by a lot of things.
Okay.
It's just very hard to compact this. If you want to learn something about Svalbard and if you want to learn something about Longyearbyen, there is a beautiful video, the northernmost town in the world, I believe. And he is explaining it very, very good and made a really beautiful video. It's not a very new video. He talks about the 2 avalanches which hit Longyearbyen, which destroyed a lot of buildings, and that's quite a few years ago. But still, it's a good video to look at. What surprised me in Antarctica was so many things. I think the distance is something people still don't understand. Being 3.5 days away, and that's the fastest way to get back to infrastructure.
Right.
I think this is big.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in a world nowadays where we can, you mentioned that earlier as well, where we can get everywhere in like 1 or 2 days. We are just used to go into a plane, fly somewhere 14 hours and we're at the other side of the globe. But that this is a region that is still not as easily reachable, right?
And the whole scale of Antarctica, I think, is also something which definitely leaves a big impact on you. And you can do the same thing in the Arctic. I mean, if you take a canoe and you go to Canada and you paddle down the Yukon, there are places where it takes you 1.5 days to reach the next village. Like now, 2025. Like,
there's still a lot of regions, I guess, in those bigger countries that are not. That is something probably very German as well for us, or very European maybe even, that we don't have a lot of blind spots anymore in our countries, right? Like the furthest away you can get in Germany from people is like a forest somewhere, and even there, if you walk into one direction for a day, you probably will reach a village, a town, a highway, something.
Yeah, and you find like 25 signs. You're not allowed to do this and that.
Yeah.
like take Greenland for example. Do people know that you can't travel from village to village by car because there's simply no road? Like,
no, I didn't know
when you look at Greenland, you have all the population on the coastline, obviously, because in the middle you have ice. But the cities are not connected, or cities like the settlements are not connected by road. So you have to either fly or take a boat, or in the winter take a dog sled or a snowmobile.
So how long does it Like, have you been to Greenland a lot?
Yes. No, not a lot. I would like to spend more time on Greenland. I would like to go to the northeast of Greenland.
What
Still
is
on my
especially
bucket list.
attractive on that?
It's
region?
very hard to reach.
Okay.
And it's very remote. And when I was on Greenland, I was expedition leader going from Greenland to Iceland by ship. And the experience I had with the people on Greenland was amazing. I was really, really blown away by learning about their culture, learning about their life, how open they are, how interesting it is to learn what they do and how they live up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to Greenland. Everybody, go to Greenland. It's beautiful.
So would you say in general, like, I wanted to say you have a knack for going to places that are not easily reachable, right? But another question that came to my mind that I didn't think about before, when you do these expeditions, right? And I'm not talking about going to Sweden or Norway, to places, but especially if you really go into Antarctica or the Arctic or Greenland as well, and you go into the wilderness, like, how long are you usually around with just like 1, 2, 3 people from your team? Because I can imagine, like, on these trips that are putting a lot of pressure on you as well, it creates like different social dynamics, I guess.
So when we talk about me going to Antarctica, then it's usually ship based. So we are not spending so much time on the continent. We are not going super deep into the ice. Like, we are not crossing Antarctica or something like that. But working as a medic in Antarctica, being on these ships, usually means you have a doctor, sometimes with you on the ship, sometimes you are only a medic. But either way, so you have a little bit of a clinic on the ship, which is like a very small emergency room, you can say. But that's it. There's nothing coming after that. You know, you can't call and you have 20 doctors coming from the hospital. It's you, and if you're lucky, one more doctor. But then you are still 3.5 days away. So now, let's talk about a stroke. Let's talk about a heart attack. Let's talk about appendicitis. Like, you know, like usual things that simply happen.
Yeah.
Again, in Western Europe, it's an hour and you are in a hospital, you are in a critical care unit, and you have all the treatment you want. You don't have all that.
Yeah.
And you don't have suddenly more medical equipment.
Yeah.
If you don't bring it, you don't have it.
So you need to improvise a lot as well?
You need to improvise a lot, but also you need knowledge. And I know I sound like a broken record, but you know,
well, it's true.
It's you can bring two things. You can bring gear and knowledge.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how you pack it and how you put it, you end up with these two things. And if you have one room which functions as a clinic, the amount of gear you can bring is pretty limited.
Yeah, of course.
So the only thing you can do to make the thing better is more knowledge. And it doesn't matter if you are in Antarctica, in the jungle of Papua New Guinea, in earthquake area in Turkey. That's what it comes down to. You have a certain amount of equipment and a certain amount of knowledge. And if we can improve the amount of knowledge, we can help a lot.
Yeah.
And when you say Greenland, and if I'm saying it's a hard to reach place, let's bring some telemedicine.
Yeah.
You know, that's the places where I want this stuff to go and where it really can make an impact.
As you say, in the end, in these environments, you're always limited, not only, as you said, in the amount of equipment you can bring, but also in the amount of people who are there to help with an issue, right?
Yeah.
If it's just you as a medic and maybe one doctor, that's 2 people who need to cover a lot of ground and who probably can't even cover all that ground with just their knowledge, because there's only so much you can pack in your brain and have available, right?
And remember, when we are going back to the Antarctic, I was saying 3.5 days if everything goes well.
Yeah.
So now you have 2 people who need to treat a critical injured patient for 3.5 days, 24/7, plus having all the knowledge.
Yeah.
Now you
plus
understand
anything
why
else.
we need telemedicine.
Yeah.
You know, like that's where we need medical overwatch. That's where we need support from the outside.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. I'd say if we don't have any more questions in chat at the moment, and if there's nothing you want to talk about specifically some more,
I think I talked a lot.
and there's probably so much more. As I said before we started the interview, there's probably going to be that moment in about 10 or 15 minutes where I'm like, that and that and that I should have asked. But yeah, in case people are interested in what you do, we have a lot of things that you did that we also talked about, right? That we didn't talk about here in this interview now, since I tried to focus a bit on your polar work and on your current work. But yeah, if people are interested in it sometime, would you be willing to maybe do another talk about a different topic that you've been exposed to or
Sure, yeah.
All right, so folks, you heard it here. Like, if you're interested
If people are interested,
let us know and we'll arrange something. I'm sure we can do that. All right, in that case, we'd wrap it up at this point. Again, thank you so much, guys, for watching and for listening to what Kai has to say here. We'll leave the donation link, since it's the same that I usually use, up for the next few days. So in case you guys are still thinking about it, you know, want to have a look at the pictures, maybe can post one or two as kind of a sample on my Discord in low quality or something like that, if you're fine with that. And yeah, maybe we can get a bit further or a bit closer to your goal on finishing your prototype.
that would
Again,
be
that
really
would
nice.
help a bunch. We already had someone donating today. Again, thank you so much, Sasha, for going such a long way. Goes to the right place, and it helps out a lot right now. So thank you so much.
I promise to keep you updated on the website with where we are with the project and what we are doing.
Perfect. All right, this is saying is also thank you for sharing today, Kai. It has all been so fascinating to hear about.
Thank you.
And I do agree. Couch surfing, folks. You heard it here, not first, but also. Amazing way to meet people. Yeah. All right. So let's roll the credits. A little bit of organization here on my part. We'll have a little break now, and in about 1.5 hours at 4 p.m. we'll go live again for an hour with some music for the cultural exchange raid train again. Yeah, and if you have any questions to Kai still, if you are going to the toilet now after the stream ends and it's the same as me, you go like, oh, I should have asked that, feel free to do so on our Discord or on Instagram, or write Kai on any of the pages mentioned in the link tree that you get with !Kai in chat, and we'll make sure those questions are answered. And yeah, and all that's left to say is for me, thank you as well for being here. Thanks for agreeing to do this, especially since you said it's kind of a new thing to you, right? With everything, and we set everything up quite last minute. But I think it worked out great. I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot, and I hope some people did too. Thank you so much.
That's interesting.
Right.